He hit me, I hit him, so we're going back and forth. Now this is a real fight. What do you mean? I thought that was just Bloods and Crips. He goes, no. He goes, that's Norteño Soreño. I see this one guy, big guy, like, look, a heavyweight. I go, man, I'm glad I'm not fighting him. There would be times when we just have beans and tortillas. That was all we'd have to eat. I'm wearing the wrong bandana, and someone looks at me and goes, why are you wearing that? I said, what do you mean? Boom, with the side kick, I go back 3 feet. So I chose that part over the gang life. And
that's where AKA started.
AKA started at the glass shop.
So I want you to talk about your past a lot today. And I wanted to ask you first, who was the Thunder? Tell us about the Thunder.
The Thunder originally was not the Thunder. The Thunder originally was Hurricane. I didn't know about nicknames, so I thought you could nickname yourself. So I said, my name is, my first fight, amateur fight. I said, my name is, Javier Hurricane Mendez, and so, I had my first fight, and the announcer calls me Javier Thunder. And I was like kind of upset that he didn't call me Hurricane when I listed on the thing, Hurricane. He put Thunder. And I was like, that's not my name. So about 3 days later, maybe a little longer, I'm sitting with my brother. I go, man, that announcer, he called me Thunder. My nickname was Hurricane. He goes, no, you're Thunder. I said, no, I'm not Thunder. I'm Hurricane. He said, no, you should have seen, the noise you made when you kicked that guy. And I'm like, what's he talking about? Then I seen the tape, right, the video. And every time I kicked this guy, it echoed through the whole arena. So I said, okay, all right, I get it. I'm Thunder.
You had 25 professional fights in kickboxing. Can you recall your hardest fight?
Yeah, out of all the fights I've had, believe it or not, my hardest fight was against an individual named Curtis Jackson. They called him Thunder Wolf. So at one of my amateur fights, when it was a national title fight, AAU national title fight, and I didn't know who my opponent was. So I'm like, guys are looking at me. They go, "Hey, you know who you're fighting?" I go, "No," and they look at me. "Oh, don't worry, you got him. You're gonna beat this guy." And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm thinking, don't tell me that, because I hate when people tell you you're gonna beat somebody, because now you got pressure on you. If you're not expected to win, that's good, because then you go out and perform, and if you didn't win, you're okay. But when you're expected to win, it really doesn't make you feel good. So I was putting pressure on myself. Who am I fighting? I don't know. I guess I'll find out. And I see this one guy, big guy, like, look, a heavyweight. I go, man, I'm glad I'm not fighting him, And about an hour later, he yells from across the room, goes, "Hey, Thunder." And I look, I go, yeah. He goes, "My name is Thunder Wolf. I'm your next opponent." And I went, oh. But now all of a sudden I went from, I wouldn't want to fight that guy, to I'm going to beat this guy. I'm going to beat this guy. So my mentality was, I'm beating you, So I went into that fight, and I had a really tough fight, and I did beat him, but he hit me with some good shots. He almost dropped me. First time in my life that I almost got dropped. I almost went down. He hit me, almost went down, and I got back up. I didn't get back up because he didn't knock me down, but I buckled my knees, right? And then I came back up, and I hit him, and I almost dropped him, So I think, no, I did drop him. I'm sorry, I did. I dropped him. He didn't drop me, but I dropped him. But he gave me a concussion, and I didn't know what concussions were. So, my head would ring really, really bad. I'd be driving, all of a sudden I get this migraine, like, ooh, and I'm like, oh, what the heck's going on with me? I didn't realize what it was. I didn't go to the doctor. So I'm so glad now that people are understanding what concussions are and to take care of them. Because back then I didn't know. I went sparring right away. That's 1 week after I started sparring again, and I had a concussion. I should have never been doing that. So I know I'm lucky that it wasn't super bad, and I didn't get any worse.
It was very different back then. You couldn't really study the tapes of your opponent. You were finding out who your opponent is right in the locker room, right?
Well, on this one, I found out who my opponent was, like, right as that day of the fight, because it was an amateur event. You fight that same day, so it's not the day before. They have weigh-ins that day, and then you fight later. And then they told me I had to fight heavyweight. So what I did, I wore a leather jacket, cowboy boots, and I put a bunch of rolls of quarters, big quarters. So I put on about another 15 pounds of weight I had on me just to make just to barely make the weight, and so I was able to make the weight because I put on a lot of stuff. And they allowed you to do it. Of course, now no way, you'll never be allowed to do that. Back then, I was allowed to do it.
Is there footage of this fight still around?
There was. I did have it, but I lost it. Yeah. And now I'm thinking back, it would be nice to have it, you know, just to see that video. And I think I need to clarify. I did get dropped one time in my professional career. Ian Jacklin dropped me. He dropped me, and I got back up real quick, and I dropped him, but he did drop me, Ian Jacklin. My first loss was Ian Jacklin, and he did drop me. I forgot.
You had 25 wins and 2 losses.
Yeah, 2 losses. No, 23 and 2.
23 and 2.
Yeah.
So what made you want to participate in martial arts in first place?
I didn't want to participate in martial arts, but you know, I was a talker. I used to talk, oh, I could do this, oh, I could do that. And I was running on the track with a good friend of mine named Juan Alexander. And I was doing my, oh, I could beat that guy, I could do that. And he stopped the run. He goes, stop. And so I'm like, why does he want to stop? He goes, I'm sick and tired of you talking about what you could have done, what you have, and what you want to do, what you can do. And he goes, you've never done nothing, right? And I'm like, thinking, well, no. He goes, then shut up. He goes, until you do something and accomplish something, I don't want to hear your talk. You know, so shut up. I don't want to hear your talk. So I was mad at him for telling me that, but I didn't let him know that. But I was very upset at him. And then about the following week, I met with my instructor, who was named Scott Coker. You know, and Scott Coker was actually starting promotions called West Coast Productions, and he was doing PKA. That was above the waist type, full contact rules, kickboxing, and he was looking for someone to do an exhibition about with Bill Superfoot Wallace, who's a legend in the American, you know, kickboxing. He was a legend, and he was known for having a super fast leg. And I said, I'd do it, you know. And he goes, okay, you're on. And I was joking. I wasn't serious. I didn't gonna get in there and fight with the world champion. I was like just being a dumbass, you know. And he goes, okay, you're on. And I was about to tell him, no, I'm not going to do it. Then I realized what my friend said, shut up, you know, until you do something. So I shut up. I said, okay. And then I went to train in kickbox aerobics to get in cardio shape for that. And then the good thing for me is I went to, because I was driving him around a little bit too. So I watched him do a seminar. He was doing there to do a seminar, an exhibition. That's how he made his money, doing seminars. So he did the seminar. And I watched his feet. They were so fast. If you blinked, he'd kick you in the head. So I said, oh boy, I better keep my hands up. This guy's gonna knock the heck out of me, right? So I kept my hands up tight at all times. Not like this, not like this, not like this, right there. You know, I didn't punch my heads because I knew he'd kick me on the head, no problem. And we go into the fight, and he actually made me look good. You know, he made me look good. He let me do things to him, you know, and I didn't realize he was doing that. I just thought, hey, I'm just whatever, having no good time. And then after the first round, Scott Coker comes up and goes, hey, you want to come down? Like, stop, you know, after one round. I said, no, I'm good. You know, I'm good. And the ring announcer says, how many of those you guys think that Superfoot is winning this? And Superfoot's like this, like for people to clap. Nobody clapped. Nobody clapped. And I'm like, didn't think nothing of it. Next thing you know, I go start the second round, and he hits me, boom, you know, with the side kick. I go back 3 feet, you know. I come back in, I hit him. He hit me, I hit him. So we're going back and forth, you know. Now this is a real fight, right? A real fight. So it wasn't like the first round where he made me look good. This was a fight. I was in a fight. And after that first round, I was no problem. Easy, very easy to breathe. Second round, wow. A whole different story. I was so tired after that second round ended, and I bloodied his lip up, and he looked at me. He goes, come on, Javier. He grabbed my, like, it's one more round. I go, oh, no, I'm good. No, come on, one more round. I said, no, I'm good, because I realize what the true meaning is of being in a real fight, right? Because this guy, you know, he would have really put the hurt on me, you know, because he was trying to hurt me that round, and he was wearing me down. I was too tired. He would have beat me up pretty good, I think, if I didn't win another round with him. So luckily for me, I didn't have to go more than 2 rounds with him. Otherwise, I think he would have probably beat me up really bad.
So Scott Coker actually played a big role in your career.
Scott Coker played the biggest role in my career. Without Scott Coker, I don't think I would have been where I'm at. I don't think I would have continued to be a coach without Scott Coker, because there was a point in my career where I was teaching people how to train in like kickboxing, and while I was making money on the side to support myself. And one of the times I had one of my guys, they were doing sparring, and we didn't have like mats or nothing like that. It was just like like carpet, and so I had one of my two heavyweights spar, and one of my heavyweights hit the other heavyweight, and he knocked him out. And my eyes just went to the back of my head like, oh my God, I was just kind of freaked out, And after the guy, his name was Gary Gibson, and after he got knocked out, he gets up and he keeps talking about what happened, who hit me, all those things. Like and you tell him, oh, you got hit. What'd I get hit with? You got hit with the overhand right. Oh, okay, good job. Next thing you know, 30 seconds later, what happened? And I'm like freaking out, going, oh man. I go, this is serious. So I had him stay in my gym 2 to 3 hours. Don't remember exactly how long, but I wouldn't let him go until he actually had a good, understanding of what's going on, And the next 2 days I was going to Los Angeles to have a fight, and Scott Coker was going with me, and I was telling him that I was going to retire. I can't do this, man. That guy could have got killed. And he said, no, you can't do that. He goes, no, you shouldn't quit. This is who you are. And I said, no, but this guy couldn't. What if he died on me? He goes, that's the road you picked. This is who you are. You can't quit. So from that talk he gave me, I said, okay, I'm going to stick with it. But if it wasn't for that talk, if he would have said, yeah, this isn't for you, I would have just never done it again. I would have back to real estate. I would have went back to real estate, and who knows? Probably I would have been rich instead of being a coach, a known coach. Not rich. I would have been a real estate, tycoon maybe. Who knows?
So we have to thank Scott Coker for Team AKA, for everything you're doing right now.
Yeah, I would say I have to thank Scott Coker for that, and also for making me poor coach. Known coach, but poor coach. Thank you, Scott.
So you were training at a glass shop, right?
My first gym was at a glass shop. One of my good friends, Jim Armetta, he had a glass shop, and I was training him, and I didn't really have any place to train the guys, so he goes, you can use my glass shop. We had, concrete space, and we had mirrors everywhere. So, you have to be careful if you go a certain area before, get yourself sliced up pretty good with the glass, right? So we'd go clean out the glass, and then we'd train there, yeah. And then from there, Scott Coker allowed me to use his gymnasium. He had at school, and he wasn't using it during certain times, so he let me use it for free.
And that's where AKA started.
AKA started at the glass shop, but then it continued to Scott Coker's gym, where then after Scott Coker got big, he moved his gym 2 doors down, and he had me take over his spot. So officially my first gym, on like recorded in the city was Scott Coker's old Taekwondo gym.
So who came up with the name American Kickboxing Academy?
The individual that came up with the name American Kickboxing Academy was a friend of mine, Kim Rhodes. And Kim was a good friend of mine who trained with me. And what happened one day is I was trying to figure out a name. And I said, I was starting a Korean name, because I trained in Tong Sudo and Taekwondo. And I was thinking of a Korean name to call what I wanted to do. So I'm like thinking, I don't remember the Korean names I was thinking of. And Kim Rhodes goes, dude, why don't you just call it American Kickboxing Academy? I said, dude, I'm Mexican. He goes, so? He goes, you were born here, right? I go, no, I was born in Mexico. He goes, oh, well, Mexico is part of North America, right? I said, yeah. He goes, there you go. So I said, oh, okay, American Kickboxing Academy. That's how American Kickboxing Academy got its name, because of Kim Rhodes.
So you were 6 when your family moved to the States, right?
I was 6 years old when my family moved to the United States, correct.
So what was it like growing up in California back then?
For me, being an immigrant, coming in legally, I want to say the word legally, through the border, the paperwork and all, it was kind of tough at the very beginning, because, I didn't speak any English, and I didn't know how to talk. And I'll share some stories that are embarrassing, but I'll share them anyways. I was in class, and because I didn't know how to, speak, right, English, so I had to go to the restroom. And I couldn't tell the teacher I had to go to the restroom because I was too shy. So I couldn't go, like, hey, I got to go to the restroom. I didn't know anything, so I pooped my pants. You know, I was 6 years old, pooped my pants, and I'm like, ugh. Next thing you know, all I remember is my parents come pick me up, and it was embarrassing, very embarrassing. So that's, no one knows that. This is the first time I've ever revealed that happened to me when I was 6 years old.
On our podcast.
And on your podcast, yeah. Javier pooped his pants when he was 6 years old because of the language barrier, and he was too shy. The other thing that happened to me growing up was I would get in fights a lot because of the language, barrier, and I would get called Wetback, which is, mojado. They call me mojado. They call me, hey, mojado, and so I'd fight because I didn't know how to do anything. So I'd use my fist. And the ironic thing about it is I was called Wetback not from, other minorities. It's my own kind. Latin kids that lived in the U.S., were born in the U.S., were calling me Wetback. So I'd fight with the Latin kids. I wouldn't fight with any other kids. I didn't get picked on by other kids. I got picked on by my own kind.
Can you explain what wetback means?
Wetback means that you cross the river to get into Mexico, and that's why I call it wetback. That's why I stated legally I crossed over legally, not the river. But hey, there's no shame in that either. To come across to better your life. There's nothing wrong in that either.
So California is known for the street gangs. Have you ever had any conflicts, street fights?
California is definitely known for, having gangs, and I've never had altercations with any gangs. I've had people wanting me to join gangs, and of course they were good friends of mine when I was growing up. But no, I didn't choose that life. I chose the, sports life, playing athletes, not playing athletes, being an athlete, to go and play basketball after school, football, the whole bit. I didn't like that gang style. It wasn't for me. They would go out there, smoke marijuana, do things like that. That was never me. I would never wanted to do that. And they'd always try to get me to go, come on, let's go smoke. I never did any of that stuff. So I chose that part over the gang life. And what ended up happening is, as I was teaching martial arts, I didn't want to wear belts, right? We didn't want belts. So I figured, what do we do? I said, well, I sweat a lot. Why don't we do bandanas? So one day I'm coming out and I'm wearing the wrong bandana, and someone looks at me and goes, the wrong color. He goes, hey, why are you wearing that? I said, what do you mean? I go, it's just to keep the sweat out of my eyes. He goes, no, why are you wearing that color? I said, is there a problem with the color? He goes, yeah, it's gang color. And I said, and it's the wrong color. And I went, oh, what do you mean? I thought that was just Bloods and Crips. He goes, no. He goes, that's Norteño Sureño too. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know. So basically he said, bro, you could get shot wearing that color out here. I went, oh, okay. So there went my bandana color. So I got rid of it. And if you look at some of my old pictures, you'll see us taking pictures with bandanas. We're wearing bandanas, red, blues, yellows, but the red and the blue is the only problem. The other colors are okay.
So, and Norteño Sureño is
Norteño Sureño, yeah.
North and south.
Yeah, north and south.
And when did you start calling your gym American Kickboxing Academy? What was the year?
1987. 1987, but not. It was American Kickboxing Academy. We didn't start calling it AKA till much later, but it was always American Kickboxing Academy.
AKA has a very recognizable visual style. Who came up with the logo and like the whole concept of the
logo? The one that we used with the red fonts and everything, that was my wife, Joanna. She came up with that famous logo that everybody knows worldwide. She did that, and she's the one that came up with the pictures on the wall of champions. She was the first one that ever did that the way she did it. Now you look at all these other teams, American Top Team, you look at all these other great gyms, now they all have the same concept that she did first. She was her that originally started all these pictures on the wall, champion pictures like that. People have had it like that, but not professionally done, aligned perfect, the way she did it. She was the first one that did this.
So you were pioneering in a lot of aspects, right?
Yeah, now that we think back about it, right, yeah, that we pioneered in a lot of ways. We're still, believe it or not, to this day, we're still the only longest reigning top gym from way back in the day that's still active now, still top gym. And everybody else that shoot a box, Militic, Shamrock, submission, was it the Brazilian top team, a whole bunch of gyms that they're gone, Quest, with Randy Couture and them, Quest, they're all gone. We're still around. We're still around competing with the best of the best.
You're still the only coach to have 3 UFC champions at the same time.
Yeah, I didn't think about that much about having 3 champions at the same time until Khabib was almost getting ready to fight for the title and he was scheduled to fight. So it was almost 4. You know, it was almost 4, because if Khabib had fought for the title during that time, we would have had 4, guaranteed. Because Khabib was the best one out of everybody. He was the best one out of everybody. So I knew once he got a title shot, he would get it. So we almost had 4, which would be an incredible accomplishment, right? But that quite didn't work out the way I wanted it to work out.
And 3 champions were Luke Rockhold, Daniel Cormier,
and Cain Velasquez.
Cain Velasquez.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You're probably the only coach to have 2 #1 pound for pound champions.
Well, I have 3 pound for pound. Daniel Cormier was one, and Khabib now is Islam. You know, so I'm probably the only one that has 3. You know, I'm probably, you know, if you really think about it, I might have a lot of records that I don't even think about. You know, that people that do, the analysts that go on records, and you know, I'm sure they'll probably come up with more. You know, but I don't think about those things. I just think about who's next. Who's next? Who's the next person to get to the highest level? And my mind is focused on Umar. Umar's next. He's the next one. You know, so you know, I have a lot of mental energy and a lot of strategies for Umar.
So it's a dynasty.
I want to create a dynasty, and I also want to create a father's plan dynasty, because these are his fighters, not mine. They're his fighters that I've been fortunate enough to be associated with to help bring them to the best, you know, in their field, you know. And I believe Umar is my next challenge to bring up on father's plan.
And for those who don't know, we're talking about Abdulmanap.
Abdulmanap, you know, who I consider a great man and a humanitarian, and anybody that knows him and has met him would know he was a great man, and he left us too soon. He left us too soon.
And just yesterday, I think they named a village where Khabib was born after Abdulmanap. Now it's going to be called Manap Kala, which means a stronghold of Manap, and Manap is like a short version of his name. So he's getting recognized back at home in Dagestan in Russia. It was a Russian prime minister who made an order to call this village Manap Kala from now on.
Yeah, that's a great honor, and I'm sure Khabib is very, very proud to have his father have a village named after him. I think it's the greatest honor, and it couldn't have gone to a more deserving individual. And I'm sure he's looking down at us now and saying, hey, you guys are doing good.
Do you remember the day when Khabib first showed up in the gym? Daniel Cormier, when he was recalling his first memory about Khabib, he said he showed up wearing a polo shirt because he didn't have much, so he came to train in whatever he had. Do you remember the moment when you saw him, and what was he like?
Well, I do remember the day I saw Khabib. He didn't speak any English at all, so it was very difficult to speak with him. So I remembered, all these sparring sessions, and he destroyed everybody right away. Nobody stood a chance against him. Stand-up wise, yeah, if he stood with people, everybody would beat him up, but he never stood with anybody. They had to deal with his ground, so he wouldn't give these guys much of a chance on anything. He'd take them down. And I remember when Daniel's talking about him not having things, I remember one time I looked at him, I said, well, let's trace back a little bit. He didn't have no headgear. So what I did is I was sponsored by Everlast, and they sent me a bunch of gear. So I gave Khabib his first headgear, Everlast headgear, that still to this day he always used for the 12 plus years of his fighting career. And when Reebok took over the sponsorship of the UFC, Khabib put Reebok on the Everlast, to cover up his headgear, because he wanted to continue to use that headgear, and he was sponsored by Reebok. So that headgear is iconic. So that's one of the things I gave him. Another thing too is one of the fighters comes up to me, goes, "Coach, you know how you say be professional and wear your gear?" I go, "Yes." He goes, "Khabib doesn't wear a mouthpiece." And I yell at him, "Khabib, come here." He goes, "Yes, coach." I said, "Open your mouth." He opened his mouth. I go, "Where's your mouthpiece?" He goes, "I don't have one." I go, "Khabib, what do you mean you don't have one?" I go, "Look, you need to wear a mouthpiece, because you never know. You can spar 1,000,000 times and you're fine, but that one time you have no teeth." He goes, "Oh, Okay, coach, I get mouthpiece. So then he got a mouthpiece. And from that point, he started learning more about bringing your proper equipment, for, training, because this is not a real fight. The real fight is later, competition-wise, the real fight. So right now, you need to protect yourself as much as possible. So he learned that earlier on.
Was it King Mo who originally told you about Khabib and asked if he could train at your gym?
Yeah, King Mo asked me, he goes, Coach, can I bring another Muslim fellow fighter? He wants to come here. And I said, Mo, for you, anybody, whoever you want to bring, just, let us know. No problem, bring them. And so, it was King Mo Lawal that invited him to come train with us.
Did you have any other Russian fighters in your gym before Khabib?
No, Khabib was the first Russian fighter that came to my gym. Now, since him, we have quite a few that always want to come. But the biggest problem is believe it or not, San Jose, California, because of Silicon Valley, where Instagram, Twitter, Amazon, all Google, they're all there, and so our area is super expensive because of those reasons. So very difficult for people to come and live there and train, because most fighters can't afford it. Khabib had a heck of a time himself coming there. It was very difficult. Sometimes people would have to, help him out, and he used to sometimes stay 4 people per room, four fighters per one room.
You even told me a story of a person who let him stay at his apartment.
In her house, yeah. Carolyn Webster. Yeah, I had asked Carolyn if she can help me with Khabib and the team, and she said yes, no problem. So I guess what happened is she called me like that day, like later, after about 8 hours or so later. She goes, Hab, I hate to ask, but she goes, is it possible you can ask Khabib and them to not stay in my place? I'm so sorry. I go, why? What happened? She goes, well, she has an inside dog, little dogs, right? Well, the first thing Khabib did is he took the little dogs and put them outside. They're not outside dogs. And see, it's different in America. They have little dogs inside. They have big dogs inside. And for Khabib, it's in their religion that they're not allowed to be inside. So he put the dogs outside. And then they put all their gear in the front of the lawn on a tree to dry, their wraps and everything. And she goes, they put everything up there. My neighbors are complaining. And so I told him, hey, I'm sorry we got to go. No, it's okay, coach. I did not feel comfortable there anyways. Too many bad things. So another friend of mine, Tony Castro, he took Khabib in at his place, but they live far away. But he took him in. So a lot of people helped back in the days. A lot of brothers that he met while he was in our area ended up taking care of him. Like people like Dima, took care of him, and other brothers that he met. So when he'd come down, they take care of him.
Do you remember the time when Islam first started training in your gym?
Yes, when Islam first started come training, I mean, he was the only person that actually gave Khabib any trouble sparring. No one else would give Khabib any trouble sparring. He was the only one. He was the only one that would actually win rounds against Khabib. No one else could ever do that. No one else won a round against Khabib. He was the only one. He was the only one that was able to win a round here and there against Khabib. So I knew that he was special based on that. And everybody else he sparred, he destroyed too. Islam was a beast, but he was, when he came, he adapted to the striking really quick because he trained at home with other striking coaches. Whereas Khabib didn't train with anybody but me and his father. So we were the only trainers he ever had. Islam had other people training with him. He had Sam, one of the guys he had, Sam, who was an Olympic silver medalist in boxing. Sam was one of his coaches, and a few other ones before him. So Islam was trained with different people, so he was advancing quicker in the striking.
What about Usman and Umar? When did they start training at your gym?
Umar came shortly thereafter, after Islam. I think maybe I started seeing Umar 2015, 2016, and right away I loved him. He's the nicest, most polite out of all of them, and so disciplined, And Usman, I didn't see him, I believe, until 2019. 19 is when I got to experience how good he was.
So do you remember this MMA tournament in Uzbekistan when Usman was fighting in the main event, GFC?
No, I didn't. I don't remember that one. No.
You went there. Frank Mir was there.
And Usman was the main event. I forgot all about that. Oh my God! Yeah, Uzbekistan. Yeah, that was an incredible event. I think almost 20,000 people. You know what? I hadn't trained Usman at that point, so Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I did work his corner. Did I work his corner?
I don't think so.
I don't think I did, right? Because I didn't train him at that point. I trained him after that, you know. But yeah, okay. I forgot who the main event was. Yeah,
that was his last fight before
yeah.
signing with the UFC.
Yeah.
Do you remember this trip? It was a great tournament.
It was a great tournament. There were great fights, and the fans were crazy. They were crazy. I couldn't go anywhere. You know, none of us, any of the guys that were stars or known names, UFC guys, oh boy, no, picture, photo, everywhere. If you stop for one, you're going to get it. You're going to get in trouble. There's no way you can stop them. Too many people.
Did you expect to see anything like that when you were just about to travel to this place?
No, I had no idea. Before I came to Dagestan, you know, the first time, you know, a lot of my fighters would say, Coach, you know, you're very famous in my country. I go, what do you mean very famous? No, you're very famous in my country. I go, what do you mean? You know, Tajikistan, you know, and Russia, they say you're very famous. I go, no, I'm not. They go, yes, you are. Everybody knows you. I go, why? And they go, Khabib. I go, oh yeah, but still, I'm just a coach. They go, no, you're really well known. Everybody knows you. And I'm like, ah. So then when I went to Dagestan, yeah, it was like crazy. I mean, I went to, you know, at the airport, the first thing I noticed was when I went there, they had people in the ceremony thing playing music for me when I came in. And I'm like, well, what's that music for? And they go, I don't know. We turn around the corner. It was for me. I was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. And then, you know, everywhere I went, there was like a big ceremony for me, you know. So I guess it was a big deal, but I didn't acknowledge it till later, you know. And everywhere I went in Dagestan, everybody appeared to know who I was, you know. So they stop and they say, photo. And I was telling Khabib, I go, Khabib, a lot of people here speak English, I think. He goes, why, Coach? They say photo. I go, no, Coach, it's the same in Russian. I go, oh, I thought photo, I thought they understood that. No, it's the same. I go, okay. So maybe they don't understand.
So when did you go there the first time?
2019.
2019. It was just before the opening of the gym.
Yes.
Abdulmanap.
Yes. So Abdulmanap gym. I got to see, Khabib took me to a tour of the gym to tell me what was going to go on. And I go, wow, this can be an amazing gym. And then I got to see it after it was done, before and after.
It's a big gym, right? It was like I think it was like a storage, like a warehouse originally, like the building where they built it.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but I just knew it was a two-story, half a two-story, you know, and it was a big gym, and it did a beautiful job with it, and you know, yeah, it was the big gym, and it's a world-famous gym, and I believe it's the #1 gym in the world.
Have you ever envisioned that level of achievements when you were a coach, coaching in a glass shop back then?
No, when I was doing that, I had no idea. I had no vision for that. I was just looking for a way to end up making a living. I thought I would go back to real estate when I was done. I didn't realize that, you know, I wasn't going to be a, you know, oligarch billionaire selling real estate. I was going to be a world famous poor coach.
And the coaches weren't even people who would be famous. Like the fighters would be famous, not the coaches, right? Like, it's very different, like in those countries, like where you go and they do respect the coach and they name the gyms after the coaches, not after the champions.
Yeah, when I go in Dagestan, the coaches are highly respected. Here in the Middle East too, where I'm at now, coaches are really super highly respected. Teachers in general are highly respected, and I think in Dagestan too, I think the teachers are highly respected too. Anybody that educates you, your elders, are highly respected, and they treat you with incredible respect. And that's why I feel such at home when I'm in Dagestan, when I'm here in UAE. You know, it's like they treat me so good over here, and it's because of, you know, your accomplishments, what you've done. They acknowledge and they respect, you know, your history.
Isn't it somewhat of a paradox? You are kickboxing coach and you have probably the best team of grapplers in MMA right now.
Yeah. And you got to add one more thing. I don't know how to teach you wrestling. I don't know how to teach you jiu-jitsu. So yes, it is kind of like, what? How the heck are you you know, show me a double leg. I don't know. Show me an armbar proper technique. I don't know. You know, it's funny, right? I don't know any of those things. And for the longest time, I was telling them, I should learn. And I go, I was too lazy. I go, I don't want to learn that. I'll just have somebody else that's there. I use this mentality that I read this book called Think and Grow Rich. and by Napoleon Hill. And basically, it just used to say about things like Henry Ford, the famous Ford manufacturer, that when he developed his car, he basically got the best people for the job. He didn't necessarily know this or know that about a car, but he got the right people. So I use that mentality. So I don't have jiu-jitsu knowledge. So guess what? I get a jiu-jitsu coach that has the knowledge. I don't have any wrestling, so I get a good wrestling coach that has the knowledge, So I grab the people and put them in their place, and I, put the puzzle together. So I learned that from that book.
And you also never had an MMA fight in your career?
I never had an MMA fight in my career. No, back when the MMA started, the first UFC was in 1993. I was already a world champion in 1993, and there was no way I was going to switch into a new sport. I was old already. I was 1993. I think I was 33. So what the heck was I going to do changing my career? No, I had no desire. And on top of that, you got to remember, 1993. There wasn't any small guy like me. I was Khabib's size, and I fought as a light heavyweight, but I didn't know how to cut weight. So I used to cut 1 or 2 pounds and fight. Now these days people cut, for the weight I used to walk around fight time around 181, and so cut to 155 would have been easy for me back then too. But back then I didn't do that, so I wasn't a big guy. In the UFC, what were those guys? They're almost 120 kilos. Like I was going to fight with those guys that knew grappling. I didn't know any grappling. That wouldn't have been a good idea for me.
So who was the first fighter in the UFC that you coached?
The first fighter in the UFC that I coached was Bryan the Fury Johnston. And he's the first one I took into the UFC, yes. And it's because I knew Art Davies, who was the matchmaker, and I met Art Davies because I had 2 of my fighters, world champions, Jean-Claude Loyer and Jerome Turcan, and we put them in the K1 USA. It's a tournament, kickboxing tournament. So I met Art through there. So I was able to get Bryan Johnston into the UFC through Art Davies.
So back then, UFC was just one of the leagues, right? You didn't think of it as the top league. It was just one of the leagues.
Well, back then it wasn't even a league. It was just in a way, it was just not a freak show, but it was a specialty show, right? There was nobody that was doing that. Nobody understood it. It wasn't sanctioned by any commission. So Bob Meyerowitz was one of the first original owners. I think the Gracies were the first owners. I think Meyerowitz bought it from them. I could be wrong about that, but definitely Bob Meyerowitz was the first one I basically made contact with when I would be in the UFC. And back then it wasn't sanctioned. A lot of people didn't like Meyerowitz too well because I guess he offended a lot of people, and it wasn't sanctioned by anybody. Fighters
were wearing shoes. A lot of hits that are considered illegal now.
Yeah.
Was very different.
Very different. They wore shoes. They didn't even pull hair at times. Some of the guys would get groin shots. There was a lot of things that basically were legal then that are illegal now. When they sanctioned it, that's when they made the unified rules. And the UFC, Bob Meyerowitz sold the UFC to the Fertitta brothers and Dana White. And Dana actually was a manager for like Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, and maybe a few others. They were managers first. The Fertittas and Dana White were managers first before they were anything.
Do you remember the moment when you realized it's turned into a sport, like an actual sport?
Well, yeah, right away. As soon as the Fertittas took over, it became a sport right away, because what they did is they did a genius move. The Fertittas were commissioners for the State Athletic Commission. They were on the commission. So they quit their positions there because they couldn't do 2. They couldn't be a commissioner and, run an organization. So they quit that, and they got Mark Ratner, who was a genius individual that got sanctioned through all these other states. Mark Ratner, known still to this day as the most humble, most logical person to open up all these state athletic commissions, because everybody loves Mark Ratner. Still to this day, everybody loves Mark Ratner. He's a big part of why all these states were opened, legalized.
Do you remember the moment when you started coaching Daniel Cormier, Cain Velasquez, and were their first UFC fights like?
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw Cain Velasquez. I think it was 2006, and his management, Dwayne Zinkin, said that, hey, I got the greatest heavyweight that's got the greatest cardio, and you're gonna love this guy, etc., etc. And I'm like, great, great, great. And then as soon as he said he's Mexican, I lost interest, because I'm thinking, oh, he's just probably a fat Mexican guy that's a good fighter, but too heavy for he's got too much weight. I never seen an athletic Mexican guy, so I was less interested when he told me that. And then when Cain came in, I was on top of the ring looking at him, and it was Cassandra Clark. She goes, Hab, I got your fighter for you here. And I look at Cain. I did a double look. I go, oh, hi. I go, oh, I thought, and I was joking. I said, I thought you'd be heavier, right? Because he looked very athletic. And he looked, he goes, oh, yeah, I wrestle at, 268 pounds. I go, oh, okay. But I was thinking, like, what I saw was an athletic Latin guy, and I said, wow, okay. Then it got my interest. From that point, what I saw that day with Cain Velasquez was we put him to spar right away. So he had his gear on for sparring, and he had one of my kickboxing world champions kick him in the head. And he doesn't know anything, doesn't know how to fight, so he got kicked in the head. But as soon as he got kicked in the head, Cain swooped in, grabbed him, and gently put him down. Okay, just kind of let him know that, hey, I can change around too if you're gonna play that route. So the kickboxers didn't get the message. So he kicked him again in the head. So this time he slammed him, right? Slammed him on the ground. Then after that, the kickboxer was, okay, I better go light. So he was going light with him. And right after that happened, he sparred with another heavyweight amateur guy, and he kicked him in the head too. And this guy, I think Cain was already tired of being kicked in the head. So he grabbed him and smashed him right away, just threw him on the ground, smashed him. And they got the message that, hey, you guys want to play around, I'm going to play. So right after that, I knew he had it. I knew this guy was going to be a world champion, because the discipline he had to hold back like that was pretty amazing. And the other individual wanted him to spar. He goes, let's have him spar. I said, no, I don't need him to spar. No, we need him to spar. I go, no. I said, I've seen enough. We don't need to spar. Because I knew right then and there Cain Velasquez was going to be a world champion.
And how's Cain doing right now?
Cain is doing fantastic right now. He says to me, you know why I'm at the gym training people there, helping out? I said, no. He goes, because you're not there. He goes, I have to keep up to tradition and make sure that we're good because you're not there. And I was like very happy to hear that, because I said, good, I can use somebody as great as him, teaching the guys, because he's a better version of me. He's a better version of me. So I was very happy that he said that, so I don't have to worry about my guys at home while I'm here, or I'm with Team Khabib, wherever we're at. I know Team AKA is doing great with Cain Velasquez and Ron Kessler there, and my son Javier Mendez is there too. He's becoming a heck of a coach himself.
So who is the main coach right now?
Main coach is Ron Kessler. He's the head coach while I'm gone, and Cain is like the second in command.
So you, as you said, you are more of a mentor right now, right?
I'm more of a mentor. Those guys are more the coaches than I am. I don't coach a lot of people anymore. I'm Team Khabib coach for like Umar, Islam, Usman, and a few Shafi, Amaru, Kasum, Tahir. Those are some of the guys that I actually am responsible for, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the guys I'm mostly responsible for.
What about Daniel Cormier? Is he in AKA as well?
No, Daniel Cormier is not at AKA. He has his own wrestling club in Gilroy, and he devotes his time to them. So I rarely see him. I rarely talk to him. I mean, I love him. He's a great AKA member for life, but he's devoted his life to coaching wrestling, and he's too busy working with the UFC and other projects that he has.
Do you remember the moment where you met him? What did you think of?
Well, when I met Daniel, they tell me he was the best Olympian. He was the team captain for the Team USA, and that he's the most talented guy, etc., etc. When I met him, he was a funny guy, but he looked pudgy. And I go, this guy? I was like, I don't know if this guy's that good, right? I'm telling myself. And the following week, I see him sparring, and he was picking guys up and smashing them. He would smash guys that they were very experienced MMA guys with his wrestling. He was a natural street fighter, and I didn't know about him. And I told the management, Dwayne Zink, and I said, I don't know about Daniel as a fighter yet, but I want him here. That guy's a natural coach. He's got a great coach. We need a great wrestling, so I want him here. Definitely I want him here. So from that point, Daniel proved my point about how good of a wrestling coach he was, because our ground game improved with his wrestling, because our wrestlers became, not our wrestlers, the guys that didn't know how to wrestle became more of a wrestler type base school. So Daniel Cormier changed AKA for the better.
What about Luke Rockhold? He had a bare knuckle fight recently. What's your thoughts on guys fighting bare knuckle?
Well, my thoughts on bare knuckle is it's a source of income for these guys that, once they're done with the MMA, but I don't think it's their first choice, because everybody that goes to bare knuckle, it's always guys that are, been in the big leagues and now they're coming down and doing bare knuckle. I have never watched the bare knuckle fight. I don't think I want to watch it because it's just so much damage can happen. These guys, they hit with such force, and they learn to hit. Maybe, if I watched it, I can be more objective about it, but I just haven't brought myself to wanting to watch a bare knuckle fight.
Mike Perry seems to be doing fine in bare knuckles. He had a lot of fights, he's winning a lot. So some fighters probably built for that, but not everyone for sure.
Yeah, not everyone for sure. Mike Perry is definitely, and he's comical. I like watching his interviews. I haven't never seen him fight, but I like his interviews. I like that guy. His personality is really awesome, I think. And, good for him. He was able to transform himself from the UFC, where he was just more of a tough guy. Then he gets cut by the UFC, and then now here he is, a bare knuckle star.
Definitely. So I want to finish our podcast with the last part, which is the questions from our followers. So a question from a profile called Fighting Lab, our friends.
Fighting Lab.
So the question is, which fighter under 21 is the best upcoming fighter in AKA?
I think this kid named Kevin and another kid named Timmy. I don't know their last name, Kevin and Timmy. Kevin came from Latin America country, and Timmy is from San Jose. Those two, I think they're under 20. Yeah, the other guys, are already, that are going to be stars from AK are already older, like Theo Haig and, Mohamed Alarak. They're like 23, 24 now.
So let's talk in like 2-3 years and
2 or 3 years, you'll see those guys. They'll do well. They'll do well.
Okay, our next question is from a profile called Pretend You Don't Exist. Who would be a good matchup for Usman for his UFC debut, if they ever sign him? Anybody but Islam. That never happened, so anybody would be a good matchup for him except Islam. Another question from the same profile. Which fighter at UFC 294 impressed you the most, excluding Islam?
Khamzat, because he was able to take down Kamaru, who's known for his wrestling, and that impressed me. Khamzat able to take him down was a very impressive feat, so Khamzat impressed me.
Question from Ayman. Which fighter in AK had a major technical impact on other fighters?
Major technical impact, Cain Velasquez, because he was the best complete heavyweight fighter. Actually, still to this day, I think he's the most complete heavyweight fighter of all time. He's a heavyweight that can do it all. So he had the most impact on people, because people would talk about Cain Velasquez and how good his technique was. And it took a long time. He got my most time out of me with Cain Velasquez, and he's the most technical heavyweight there ever has been.
Question from a profile named Ben Bully.
Bully Ben?
Ben Bully Ben.
Bully Ben.
Ben Bully is curious, when are you going to learn Russian?
And I don't know, Ben. I'm trying. I got Duolingo, and I haven't looked at it in quite a while. I bought the whole program to learn how to speak, Russian, so Khabib and them can't hold secrets from me. I was trying to be the secret spy, and all of a sudden learn, and all of a sudden I'd be in the conversations, and they'll be talking, and I'll say something funny, and they're looking at me like, what's going on, coach? But no, that hasn't happened. I know some words, but not too much.
Like simple phrases.
Simple phrases, Dubai, machina, low cut, layway, naga, things like that,
Another question. Islam striking versus Justin Gaethje striking?
Islam is more of a sharpshooter. Justin Gaethje is really, really good striker, but he's more like, not a brawler. I wouldn't call him a brawler, but he's not as technical as Islam. Islam is a more technical striker. He has more of an arsenal, more weapons. Justin's really good with the low kick, and he has good boxing, but Islam has a better arsenal.
Justin saying he wants to fight Islam next. Do you see this fight happening?
I potentially see that fight happening because, you know, he's earned the right to fight him as well as Oliveras, but, you know, and let's see what the UFC decides. I mean, they're going to make the decision on who's going to fight who. We can say whatever we want, but the UFC makes that decision, who they're going to offer Islam. And Islam is going to fight whoever they offer him, you know. And, of course, for me, I did this last time. I threw it out there. I threw it to the MMA gods, and they gave me what I wanted. I wanted the Alex rematch. So I want Kobe, welterweight title, Kobe.
So it was your wish, but you didn't say it to anyone, right?
Yeah, I did.
I
did. They asked me. I said, hey, you know, if you know, they go, who would you want? I said, who do I want? I said, I want Alex. I go, why? Because there's unfinished business. That's why. I go, I don't know who Islam wants, but I want Alex. And look what happened. So I want Kobe. So American wrestling versus Dagestani wrestling. American wrestling, Dagestani wrestling. I'm just throwing it out there.
And it's going to happen.
Yes, it's going to happen. Now he's going to be two-time champion. Now he's going to join Daniel Cormier in that group with me.
That's something that you learned from the book.
Think and grow rich. Got to think it to believe it.
And it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Okay, another question. Does Islam spar with Usman?
Yes. Yes, very fun. Very fun to watch.
Is Usman his toughest challenge?
I would say in the sparring outside of Khabib, Usman is definitely Islam's toughest sparring. Yes, for sure.
People also ask a lot about Shara Bullet. We've seen the clips of you hanging out in a zoo. How did it all come about?
It all came about because of my one fighter that lives here in the UAE, Hadi Omar. Hadi, basically, you know, I asked him that a few of my friends wanted to go see the Balhassa farm. And he goes, okay, coach, I'll arrange it. So at the same time that was happening, I guess Shara's people contacted Hadi, wanted to know if they can come also. So they got them all together. And then Hadi said, if I'm minded, there's some fighters coming. I said, no, I have no problem with it. That's how I met Shara.
What was it like hanging with him? What kind of person is he?
He's a very funny person, very motivated by challenges. He likes challenges. He's a risk taker, you know, and it's really cool when you look at him. He's got one blue eye and one regular eye, and he looked like his nickname, the Pirate, you know, and he has that reddish hair, and you know, he's a great personality, very funny guy, and he did things that I wouldn't do. You know, like with the lions and the alligator, he very risky. He'd do risky things. I'm like, oh, I ain't gonna do that. And at the very end, him and I did a tug of war with the liger, you know, and the liger weighed almost 700 pounds, you know, compared to our, 400, you know, 50 or something like that. Maybe about 450 pounds. And we did tug of war, and the liger beat us, so we had to do a sign to say I lost. Him and I had I lost. So at the Balhassa farm, it'll show us I lost to the liger. Yeah, we lost.
And for those who don't know, liger is a mix.
It's a mix. A liger is a tiger and lion mix, and they're huge.
And the last thing I want to ask you about is about your childhood. We spoke about it briefly. You grew up in a poor family, right?
Yes.
Like, did you have enough food when you were growing up?
No, when we grew up, we didn't have enough food a lot of the times, and I used to wear like 3 pants throughout the whole year. You know, 3 pants. So I only have a selection of 3 or 4 shirts, 3 pants for the whole year, and there would be times when we just have beans and tortillas. That was all we'd have to eat, and sometimes just tortillas. You know. Yeah, we were very poor. I was always wishing I had rich parents, you know, and maybe changed my dad. Never my mom. I never wanted to change my mom, but my dad was, for me, interchangeable because my dad was never around. My dad was not a good father. He loved us, but he wasn't a good father. He had a lot of bad vices like drinking, gambling. You know, he had a lot of things that he did that taught me as a young child not to be like my father. You know, because I didn't want to be what he did, because he was a horrible example for us as children. He wasn't a father to us, so he taught me that. So I thank him for that, because I never did that to my children. You know, the total opposite of him, and it's because I knew what it was like growing up poor. I knew what it was like being neglected by your father, loved by your mother, but neglected by your father, and I didn't want that. So I always tell my children I love them, and you know, make sure that if they need anything, that I'm there to support them, which is something my father never did for me.
So sometimes you have a good example in front of your eyes, but sometimes you have a negative example, and you're just learning not to do things this way.
You learn in life, you know, you learn what you want to be and what you don't want to be from what you see, you know, and your parents are a huge part of how you develop as a young adult, you know, and my parents were definitely a huge part of what happened with me, and it was through negligence that I became the champion that I became. It's because my father told me I would never amount to anything, you know, I wasn't going to be anything, you know, and my mother loved me, but she didn't want me to do anything, you know, physical, because she didn't want me getting hurt. But my father told me that I wouldn't amount to anything, and I wanted to prove my father wrong, that I would be somebody. I proved you wrong. And when I did become somebody, I told my father, I go, you know why I became a champion? He goes, no, son, why? I go, because you told me I wouldn't amount to nothing. And he goes, well, son, I was only joking. I go, yeah, whether you were joking or not, I took it serious, you know. And he goes, I'm sorry. I go, no, don't be sorry. It made me who I am, you know. And he goes, I know I was a bad dad. I go, yeah, you were a bad dad, but you know, you did one thing great. You brought me to the United States. You gave me an opportunity for a better life. And so I'll always love you for that.
So what were the main lessons that you took from your childhood?
My main lessons is, you know, that learn to appreciate what you have, you know, and if you got loving parents, at least one of them, you know, learn to love that. And this world needs more love, and love is the key to being happy, you know, love. You know, resentment, hatred, all those things the world doesn't need. All those things lead to bad things happening to people. So we need more love. And my mother gave me plenty of love.